Thanks everyone for attending, our Code Without Borders. We are one of the sponsors. We're looking to sponsor $1,000 spread across three prizes. So first place is $500, second place is 300, and third place is 200. So just way of background, Ginseng Swap is a DEX. So, if we look at DeFi Llama, we just started recently. So in May or so, we had our, final audit, and then we've had some volume mostly focused on stablecoins, so USDC and USDT, because as a concentrated liquidity provider, we thought, we could provide more efficiency there. We'll go a bit more detail about what that entails, but on a high level, we're looking for essentially like a mobile app using Ginseng Swap contracts for swapping that can show the users existing liquidity positions or something around an AI agent. So I think one of the issues with stable coins in general is that it can be expensive to hold in a sense that you're foregoing some of the like the treasury yield or some of the bank yield that you would traditionally have in fiat. So whether it's opportunistically arbitraging for opportunities in different liquidity segments or different yield, because Conflux does have different protocols that do give you yield in your stable coins, whether it's Unitas or Swappy or so for their liquidity positions, but something that helps with increasing the yield on your stable coins. Just as a some of the other ecosystem providers that do support Conflux that you could use for part of your hackathon. I think Unifra allows you to call on the RPC for free for quite a bit. Same as cloud validation. MVO is really good for indexing. So if you're putting up your NFT positions, they do have a free repo that you can put up for indexing. If you're looking for, for swapping between like the different pools, there's a repo by Uniswap for smart order routing that you can take a look at to see how they kind of look at different pools for what the most efficient hopping between different pools is. And then for Eliza, there's also existing plugin registries. So if I were to look at, for example, right here, there's already existing plugins that you can take a look at. And in particularly, if you look at the packages here, the Bootstrap plugin is pretty good for allowing you to know like the different components, like the actions, evaluators, provider services. So you can take a look at the structure of how they interact with the core, which is a good reference for building out your AI agent. So yeah, so like I think also as another tip, like Conflux has a mobile app in a sense that creates your own sort of Conflux eSpace wallet. You can find that in the essentially the Fluent wallet GitHub under Venus. So like if you can kind of just like you can fork this and maybe add on in terms of how you would, for example, like in this page here, maybe it could be something like a swap button where you can swap on Ginseng swaps contracts for USDC versus USDT. So just some tips here where maybe you don't need to like create things from scratch, or you're wondering where the equivalent RPC providers are from different EVM chains. That's something you can look at. I'll share this presentation later. But just as a step back to see, what decentralized exchanges are. I mean, for the most part, in what we are more familiar with is in the traditional finance, you have an order book where you essentially have bid ask, where some people are looking to buy and some people are sell, and then there's a spread in between, and then there's an order book where essentially you have a centralized exchange that provides liquidity. But decentralized exchange is where you have a smart contract where, for the most part, anyone can provide liquidity. So, for example, in this pool here, it's a pool of ETH and USDC, and you provide tokens of ETH and USDC so that people, when they swap, let's say ETH to USDC, they're depositing ETH into the pool and taking out USDC. And really, it's governed by a smart contract formula for, like, for example, V2, where everyone's a lot familiar with is, X times Y equals to K, where X represents the amount of tokens of your, first token. So let's just say ETH, Y would represent USDC. So this is the token amount. And if you keep the K constant, we're essentially saying the ratio of the token amounts between X and Y represents the price discovery. So as that amount of reserves gets shifted between X and Y, you have different pricing. So in a nutshell, That's really how decentralized exchanges have kind of evolved from, like from the very beginning, when we think of like the V2 versions. And then the V3, which is what Ginseng Swap kind of leverages, is concentrated liquidity, where instead of having liquidity spread across, in this example here, across the full spectrum from infinite X to infinite Y, we are focusing it based on ticks. So basically, we're separating each of these amounts to narrow ranges so that you can concentrate liquidity into a specific range. So one tick, for example, is essentially 1 basis point, so 1.001 to the power of 1. And then there's many ticks. So essentially, you're allowed to focus in your liquidity on specific ranges. So here, this just represents the cumulative 60-day volume. We have about 450K in cumulative volume. But this is just based on our, small amount of liquidity that we have attracted. In a sense, only one token pair, really, USDC and USDT. We have an audit report where you can take a look to see what the contract addresses are. So on our website, you can just go to our home, and then at the very bottom, the audit documents here, you can pull up our PDF for the contracts. And we'll go over next, but like I guess like how you would interact with the contracts, but we'll go into that a bit. So right now, what we're looking to focus on is really providing an integrated solution. So right now, we're working with a on-ramp and off-ramp integration with the license via a virtual asset service provider, so that people can on-ramp into Conflux from a USDC and USDT and off-ramp easily. Right now, it's in sandbox production, but we're hoping to get that out in the next quarter. And then also we're trying to see how we can reduce the cost of holding stable coins. So as I mentioned, like, you're foregoing the liquidity or the yield of holding, for example, US Treasury. So being able to, as a user of stable coins, be able to dynamically earn yield. So whether it's people borrowing, whether it's your LP positions on different dexes. So yeah, so we're trying to working on on-ramp to be able to get some yield, to be able to swap, and then off-ramp. And also in terms of adoption, like how do we make it easier for users to actually use? So that's where really the bounty comes in, is from a mobile standpoint, like how do we make it so that people can swap from their phones or interact with the smart contracts on Conflux with their phones. So this is just a brief on-ramp kind of UX. But in general, just how it works really on high level for the contracts is you have a factory contract, which essentially creates the pools. So, you can be any sort of token, token A, token B. So when you create the function, create pool function, that pool is identified by the token A, token B, and then the fee. So they sort this out by lexicological order. So, but token A, token B, fee is generally how the pool is created. And that factory contract essentially creates pools. So think of like the top contract being the factory, and below it being, the pool contracts, where you have many pool contracts representing different pools, whether it's USDC, USDT on the 0.05% fee, or the USDC, USDT on the 0.3% fee. So each fee tier has its own pool. And the pool contract itself is a core contract where it holds a lot of vital information. So if you're doing for the bounty representing what the LP positions are, like you can look at slot 0, which has the current price in Q6496 format. So basically, because we want precision, basically the prices are scaled up to 2 to the power 96 and stored in, square root format. But this is a key component which kind of drives what the pricing is for the pool. And then for the position manager, if you want to query what your liquidity position is, this is where, the NFTs are minted. So for example, the parameters we have here, you have your token 0, 1, the fee, basically the ticks where the liquidity is bounded, the amounts that you want to mint as a liquidity position. So for example, here we have 1,000 USDC and 1,000 USDT, and then the desired slippage. So basically, the position manager, the pool contract, the factory contract, these are all core contracts that generally people look at for looking at what the information is for Ginseng Swap. I think the last part is really the swap router. So The swap router contract, basically, let's open on the, so basically every contract in Ginseng Swap is verified, so you can see what the code is here, and then you can look at what the contract functions that you can kind of interact with. So here I'm like the exact input. So if you want to specify, for example, 10 USDC is what you want to swap, the output is kind of the part where you need the quote and the uncertain part, or you can be the exact output. So let's just say I want exactly 10 USDT. What is our input? So for example, the exact input, we have, this is what you need to provide in a sense. So you need to provide who the recipient is, the deadline, the amount in, the amount out minimum. So that's kind of specifying the slippage. But really, if we write the contract here, the router address would be this one right here. The router ABI, you can see basically, on the block explorer, generally it's the very bottom where you can kind of just grab the contract ABI, and then the function name here. So if you're swapping from one to next, you just need to encode the path. So the path would really be adding whatever the token address for USDT, the token address for USDC, and the fee. So here's an example here where you're really just concatenating and putting them together to form some sort of, I guess, final string of something like this, which has essentially the address of USDT, the fee, and the USDC address. So yeah, I mean, that was really quick, 20-minute, just a brief overview of Ginseng Swap. But really, like, I think I'm looking for more on, I guess, the UX side on the mobile app to showcase how, potentially something like this could have like a swap function that has an ability to swap between USDC to USDT. There's already a repo which kind of gives you a great starting point on how to connect to the Conflux eSpace. So from everything from the RPC URLs and stuff like that, like you can generate one on your own for if you think you're going to call more, especially if you're going to show the liquidity positions. That's where the indexing comes in as well. So yeah, so I'll leave it at that. I mean, yeah, like maybe we can leave some time for questions.
That was great, Tony. Uh, that was an awesome introduction to Ginseng Swap and the contracts. I think it was pretty clear. I don't know if there is any questions on the chat, but yeah, overall, I think it's also very important to highlight this about Ginseng Swap being based on Uniswap v3. This is key information because there is also lots of different tools apart from the ones that you also shared, Tony, that use Uniswap v3. So there is lots of code examples you can find on the internet. And also the good thing
Yep,
is that most LLMs are already like trained with Uniswap v3 stuff. So most like AI assistants kind of know how to handle Uniswap v3 smart contracts and how to build stuff that can interact with those contracts. So yeah,
yep. No, I
there is a
agree.
lot of
Like I
tools.
think that's a great point, Nico. I think this is an area that I'm super interested in, and I think there's a lot of, I guess, information there, and also a lot of additional things that you can be doing as well. So, for example, like the smart order routing, like you have these pools, but finding the pathway for the most efficient swaps between one token to the other could be hopping between different pools, and you have different fees and different liquidity. So that's an area that's interesting, as well as how to display essentially the fees and the APR of your liquidity position, because some of the data is there on the blockchain, but it's in raw data. So being able to kind of massage it to be able to be seen easily is something that while a lot of people have been doing it, it's a great exercise in itself to do, and it's applicable for a lot of other protocols as well.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. And I got a question myself because we haven't mentioned that topic, but what about account abstraction? I think that's also a good thing about adoption, and especially for this kind of applications.
Yeah, I think if you're able to integrate account abstraction in any way, whether it's like sponsoring gas fees, or being able to do social login on the mobile app, which I think we have some sort of features already built in from that repo I was talking about. But that's always good, like in terms of how to make it friendly, whether it's using Privy or different protocols to make it that way.
That's awesome. And I see there is a question here. What are you hoping for in regards to the AI agents integration with Ginseng Swap?
It's interesting in the sense that as a stable coin exchange where we're doing concentrated liquidity. I think there's opportunities to whether it's arbitraging on an MEV basis. So, for example, let's just say you have another DEX on Conflux which has a different pricing for USDC USDT, and given our slot zero pricing is different, with the gas fees on Conflux being really low, potentially you have a AI agent that can essentially take advantage of that and essentially provide positive MEV to the environment where you have better pricing on both exchanges, right? So basically, if USDC is lower, you buy from Ginseng swaps, liquidity pools, and then sell somewhere else, or vice versa, right? That's one example, and another one would be, I think, there's underutilized of, I guess, borrowing supplying protocols. For example, let's just say you're indifferent between USDC and USDT. You have different supply rates on, for example, Unitas, which is another Conflux compatible borrowing supplying platform, which has different yields for USDC and USDT. So a user that let's just say is passively indifferent between the two stable coins might want to earn the highest yield. Let's just say every week they'll kind of swap to the higher yield protocol. So just I guess an example, like let's just say USDC is supplying at 3% 1 month. That's higher than 2%. Then we would supply on USDC and then withdraw from there and then deposit in USDT of the vice versa next month. So very basic in a sense, but it would utilize, you know, integration with another protocol, but also be swapping with Ginseng Swap. But also for the user's perspective, be happy that you're able to passively manage their stable coins.
All right. Thanks, Tony. Is there any other question from the audience? Anyone wanna join and speak in the stage? Or you can also post your questions on the chat. But yeah, overall, Tony, and special thanks for Ginseng Swap for sponsoring the hackathon and for supporting the Conflux ecosystem. It's great to see people build projects and encourage other people to contribute. So yeah, I think for
Yeah,
everyone participating in the hackathon, this is also a good opportunity. There is more prizes, there is more resources for you to learn more stuff on how to integrate with Conflux.
yeah, no, great. No, no, thank you, Conflux, for sponsoring and putting it together. I think as someone that participated in hackathons myself, I think it's great that the infrastructure layers are giving an opportunity for people to learn more about this space, because this is still, I think, a space that's growing. And from an educational point of view, like, these hackathons provide a great platform for people to learn and also meet new people. And yeah, like, I think it's great that we're doing this.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking. Actually, Ginseng Swap was born on in a hackathon last year, in the UHack, isn't it? Or participated on that hackathon.
Yeah, agreed. So it's definitely it could be like a rabbit hole where you do something and then you continue on and keep on working on it. And I think for me, it's been something of a journey, and it's great to start and keep on working on a project, especially since the landscape of DeFi has continued to change and grow. I think there's a lot more opportunities, whether it's from like a interoperability point of view, or wrapping different stable coins onto Conflux, or there's a lot of opportunities to not just be isolated to whatever protocol you start off with. So that's why I'm kind of looking at some of the other stuff besides swapping, and seeing how to make it easier for like a normal day user to see how we can kind of be adopted from a mass scale adoption. But yeah, like, I think it's great that if you're doing a hackathon, like, don't yeah, just try to just do it. Like, I think it's even wherever you're starting off from, it's a great learning experience, and you never know whether you'll win a prize or not. So
Yeah, sure. I think it's a great example, like projects that are going to be built during this hackathon, for example, maybe next year could be sponsoring future hackathons and like you are doing right now. So yeah, I think it's a great example and a good uh, success story, let's say. And Yeah, it's some other question is maybe regarding non-USD pegged stablecoins. Like I understand, like for Conflux, this is very important. So I don't know if you have any comments on that. Are you planning to include non-USD pegged stablecoins on Ginseng Swap?
I think right now we're gonna focus on like the on ramp, off ramp, and also seeing how we can more dynamically integrate with some of the other protocols that we have on Conflux. Because I think we already have some infrastructure built out, whether it's like that mobile app or different borrowing, supplying protocols or Meson from like an interoperability point of view. So I think there's potential here to allow users to use those sort of services and kind of integrate from that perspective. But I think right now we're just kind of focused on, seeing how we can tackle the entire solution of like make it easier for people on ramp, swap, earn yield, and off ramp.
Sounds perfect. Thanks. Well, if there is no more questions, I think we can leave it there, isn't it?
Yeah, just if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We'll check the developers channel on Conflux Network, and just feel free to just tag me or whatever. I'll be looking at the channel for any questions.
Yeah, 100%. If you need support, just reach out on Telegram or the Discord channel and we can help you. Thanks everyone for joining today and just reach out if you have any other questions or comments. We're happy to help.
All right, thanks guys.